huge hind legs, huge hind legs. Why? Because you make all of your money from prosciutto. So over the years, they've been selectively bred to look like that because that's where you make your money. In the US, where do we make our money? Bacon. Bacon. So our pigs have been selectively bred to look like wiener dogs. They are very short little legs, very long bellies, and it's because we make our money from bacon. So that's the difference between an Italian pig and an American pig, even the same breed. So if you were to get a Duroc pig, which is a heritage breed that we like to work with, if you were to get a heritage breed from Italy and stand it side by side with a Duroc heritage breed from the US, you would notice a drastic difference. Primary difference being the length and the hind legs. So that's why prosciutto legs and prosciutto cotto from us look the way that they look, because we use 100% US raised pork. So this is the prosciutto cotto minus the label. And just like we talked about, you've got that natural fat cap that comes up. The QA spec is that it should be within 1/4 of an inch. We try to trim out everything that is excessive because we don't want you guys paying for a ton of fat that you're going to have to trim off. You already have to trim off the skin, and we know that. So we try to pre-select them, and for the hams that are larger in fat diameter, we can repurpose them and use them for other things. So we try to QA those out. If you ever got one that was very little meat and a ton of fat, you would just let Siri know. We'll get a credit to her, she gets a credit to you. It's a very easy thing. It just happens. Because you're working with a whole muscle cut, you don't get to dictate what it looks like or standardize it. There is absolutely variance in not only every whole muscle cut we do, but even the ground fermented salami. There's always going to be variance in a product that's made by hand. So this is what it looks like. You get it. What do? Customer just ordered or wants to sample it. What do you do from here? Yes. Thank you. Take the wrapper off before it goes in the slicer.
Just a, I mean, that's one of the things that I don't really know. You don't take all the skin, just where you're going to slice, right?
So that's actually a really good question, and we definitely need to make sure we cover that when we talk about the cured fermented salamis, because the casing is very important to the overall health. Slightly different with the cooked product, only because you're going to get the same date range out of this, whether you take it all at once or not. And a lot of that is actually not necessarily because of the product, but because of the dictation from the county health department. So they've decided that and they're actually, as manufacturers, we don't get the right to tell you how long you have with our product once you open it. That's dictated by county health department. So I can't tell you what the shelf life is on an open product. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and a lot of them make sense. The reason for that is the temperature that you're storing this at affects that. How you wrap it affects that. How many times you get in and out of the fridge affects that. So for me to tell you exactly what the shelf life is when it's open, that's not realistic, because it's going to vary from county. So that's why they set it up county to county, because it's going to vary from shop to shop and how it's being taken care of. But for the most part, once you open this plastic, you've got 4 days, maybe 5, if you're wrapping it really well, taking excellent care of it. It's a cooked product. So you open it, you take the plastic off, you notice a couple of things right away. One, you're not drenched in water. Very little moisture in this guy. Take the plastic off, you remove the skin. What can you do with the skin? You can fry it. Yes, it's delicious. One of the things, before the entire group was here, one of the things that we were talking about was salami di testa, which is head cheese. Something that's very popular, something that's not part of our culture and great tradition. But again, if you ever have Europeans in front of you and they order this ham, they might actually ask you to A, leave the skin on, or B, give them the skin if you're going to just throw it away. And that's why. It's actually consumed in a lot of cultures, just not traditionally consumed in ours. Safe to consume, the same way that a casing is safe to consume, just not traditional for us. So you peel back the skin, and we're going to each do this in a minute because we're going to slice this, so we'll have the opportunity to work with this product. You peel off the skin, and now what? You're ready to slice it.
I typically ask the customer, think they want a slice.
That's a great question. I will tell you, not that that's wrong by any means, but I will tell you, in my experience behind the deli counter, I found that asking that question leads to bad information, only because they don't actually know. So one of the things that I always ask them is what they're doing with it. So if I ask them, how thick do you want to slice? They're going to say, oh, sandwich is fine, because that's what they know. But in all reality, they're going home to put this on a charcuterie board, and a sandwich slice thickness is actually not going to be as enjoyable as paper thin. But they don't know that, and that's what they know. So rather than asking them what they want, I would like the opportunity to explain to them what they actually want, based on what they're going to do with it. So if they're taking it home to make ham steaks, great. You want a thick cut, you're going to grill it up on both sides, maybe make chicken cordon bleu, maybe throw some pineapple on it. You can do a lot of different things with the prosciutto cotto, but if you are going to roll it in a croissant, or you're going to make sandwiches out of it, and the way that I communicate that to them is after I ask them what they're doing with it. So for example, oh, you want some prosciutto cotto, that's great, what are you doing with it? Oh, I'm going to make sandwiches for lunches this week. Oh, great. The artisan recommends paper-thin slices for sandwich meat. Do you want to try it that way? And then offer them a piece at the proper thickness. They get to enjoy it the way that it was meant to be enjoyed. And then they can tell you, oh, yeah, I really like that. When they may have ordered it sandwich slice thickness because that's what they know. Again, this is not part of our culture. We didn't grow up with cured meats, Italian meats. This isn't really something that most of us had open exposure to all the time. So it's something that you, me, our customers, our mutual customers, they're not terribly comfortable with. So it takes some coaching and practicing to kind of get them to be able to enjoy the experience the way it was meant to be enjoyed. So, but it's very, very, very important that we start with that step before we just start slicing. We should absolutely understand what the customer wants before we throw this on the slicer. That is definitely a very, very big part of the art of selling charcuterie. If we just throw this on the slicer and start slicing away, we could ruin the experience for them, not understanding what they are after. So we've got it on the slicer. Does it matter whether it's vertical or horizontal? Yes. Which way should it be? And why does it matter?
You need to cut with the grain of the meat.
Okay, so you should cut with the grain of the meat. What's the number one reason why that is true?
It's more tender.
I'm glad your brains are at QA, but that is actually not the case. The reason that you should slice like this as opposed to this.
Better control.
Safety.
Oh.
Because if you've got this on the slicer, it's very likely to tip. And in our world, in our brains, in our impulse, when something starts to tip, what do we do?
Grab it.
And when you've got a slicer blade going and you start grabbing at things, it's not good. I'm happy to report that I am still 10-fingered, even after 4 years. I've yet to have a slicer incident, and I'd like to keep it that way, and I'd like you to keep it that way. So cut gloves and walkouts are very important. I will tell you the single most important thing that you do in your job has absolutely nothing to do with product. It has to do with getting in the habit of walking by the slicer and zeroing it out every single time you walk by it, even if it's 10 times in a row. And nobody's touched it since the last time you zeroed it out. That should just be habit. When you walk past the slicer, grab it and twist. Is it all the way left? Grab it and twist. Always get in the habit of zeroing that out because the blade should never be open or exposed. You will reduce a lot of issues for yourself and your coworkers if you just get in that habit. Every single day. When we worked behind the deli counters, that was just something that the managers would come out and just say, like, who walked past the slicer? Why didn't you zero it out? Like, that should just be something that gets to be second nature for you, for everybody that you work with. It's easy to be interacting with a customer, slicing something up, and walk away. So cover each other's backs, get in the habit of doing that, so that when somebody walked away, you got it covered for them. So we've got it on the slicer, we've got it with the grain, we're slicing long ways. Approximately how thick should we slice it? Ideally.
Well, we used to be told that he could read the newspaper behind, or he actually, it's a paper thing that he could see.
I love that. Yes, so unless the customer is going to take it home and make a ham steak, unless the customer specifically asked for something else, the ideal way to enjoy this product is thin as paper. Beautifully, beautifully thin as possible. So what does that mean? That means, for a couple different reasons, you'll never be applying the pressure directly to the product. A, because it's not safe, and B, because it's not recommended, it'll increase the likelihood of your thickness, or the thickness. Where does the dial get set if you want it paper thin?
Move the first one or two on there.
So that was a trick question. He's wrong. The answer is you don't ever go by the dial, and the reason is over time that will change. As you break in the slicer, so brand new slicers are great. You can set products by dials. Works like a charm every time. And then as a year goes by, 2 years goes by, what used to be a 1 is no longer a 1. I have a Burkle slicer at my house, and every single year that thing changes, and now you just kind of have to eyeball it. So I would say from a very early on, get in the habit of eyeballing the blade and the product and get comfortable with that. And don't worry so much about where the dial is, because that's not going to be a good indicator long term of where you're slicing product. Now you are in a brand new store, brand new slicers, that makes things a little easier. So you'll find it between, for me, it's actually a little less than a 1 on my dial. But that means paper thin. It should not be opaque. You shouldn't have a hard time seeing through it. You should be able to kind of hold it up to the light and see light coming through it. So that's kind of the ideal thickness on a prosciutto cotto. This will be the first thing that we grab open and dive into product. And Siri, if you'll tell me when we're ready,
Well, yeah, we
we're
can.
ready.
Yeah, let's slice.
You want to slice and go?
Then we can move into eating a little something.
Let's do it. And then we'll wrap up with the rest of the product.